So, have you seen this clip? I feel like I really need to talk about it. It was taken during the D+Kia 2-1 game a couple days ago, and it shows D+Kia's support career. He is visibly upset, and cvMax is standing there next to him, and he's saying something. You don't know what he's saying, we can't hear what he's saying, but career is visibly distraught and crying. Some people saw that and were immediately like, oh, this is abusive behavior, like cvMax needs to be stopped. You have the people who are like, well, career is a rookie. He is under a lot of pressure. Like, he's playing against Carrier. What really caught my attention though was not those kinds of responses, but the responses that were defending the alleged abuse behavior. I saw so many people saying this is normal in sports and like they deserved it because they weren't playing very well, or even they won, so obviously it works. So here's my real question. Does that style of coaching actually make players better? If it does in the short term, what are the long-term costs? Because winning and developing players are not necessarily the same thing. This is not actually just about this clip and a couple others that I found when I was looking at this clip, but it's about coaching philosophy actually, and whether fear is something that we should be normalizing in sports and esports in particular. So first let's talk about cvMax history, and then we'll zoom out to the bigger question about authoritarian style coaching. Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. If you are new here, my name is Nikki. I am a variety streamer on Twitch, and sometimes I post YouTube videos of me yapping about things. And because I'm sure you don't want to hear me yap about the criminal pedophile ring currently ruling my country or global conspiracies, we will be talking about LL eSports. So first, let's unpack what we saw from what we assume. So here I'm going to talk about the clips because there's more than one. We have the first clip that I saw where, you know, Career is crying and cvMax is saying something to him. But when I looked into it, there are other clips. One where cvMax looks like he's absolutely upset, like he is not happy. And then you have another one where Career is crying. But this is all that we know. We're not in the room with them. We don't know what cvMax said or didn't say. We don't know what was going through Career's mind. He obviously, it can be multifaceted, right? We don't know. But what we can say is that cvMax does have a reputation of having a really harsh, intense coaching style. And this is not the first time there's been controversy surrounding him. Back in 2019, he was the coach of Griffin. During his time with Griffin, reports had surfaced which include accusations of him insulting players and allegations of verbal and physical abuse. Riot Korea's investigated and handed him a suspension. After that, it was rescinded for procedural issues. So just note that. Multiple people have described his coaching style as intense and controversial and confrontational, with even casters saying that he tends to scream at his players. And not just yell, but scream. I think that's an important distinction to make. And that's not me saying that's true. I'm just saying what the casters are saying. So when people saw Career crying, they didn't interpret it in isolation, right? They took it into consideration what they know of cvMax's reputation. Now you can kind of see why a lot of people's initial response to this clip is to assume that cvMax was being verbally abusive towards Career. I also saw the argument that Career was already crying before he was even in the room, so obviously cvMax had nothing to do with him crying. I just want to point out that psychologically that's not really how that works. There's something called anticipatory anxiety. When someone expects harsh confrontation or punishment, their stress response can actually activate before anything actually happens in preparation of what's to come. The body doesn't need confirmation, it just needs the threat expectation. That doesn't prove that anything happened behind the scenes. Like we weren't there, obviously we don't know. These little clips aren't a documentary into their lives, we don't know. But also it doesn't disprove it either. This brings me back to the core question. Does yelling and fear-based coaching actually work? So this is where I think the conversation needs to be a little bit more nuanced. I think fear can absolutely produce results in the short term. Fear can increase compliance, like immediate compliance, right? If players are afraid of disappointing the coach, they may lock in harder. Stress can temporarily heighten focus. But here's the trade-off though. Chronic stress also impairs decision making. Like, we know that chronic stress is not good for the body, right? It increases anxiety, it increases burnout, and in a game like League, where confidence, communication, and quick decision making and cognitive processing, like, that matters. So winning doesn't automatically validate that method, right? Sometimes talented players win in spite of their environment and not because of it. And that's where I think we need to be careful about drawing those types of conclusions. Esports already has a burnout problem. Players retire young, careers are short, mental health struggles are common. Again, that doesn't prove direct causation, right? Because correlation does not equal causation. We know that. But it does raise the question. If a system consistently produces high stress, is it really sustainable? Because a championship trophy and a healthy 5-year career are not always aligned goals, right? Some people don't even get one. So the one defense that I saw the most was, coaches yell, like, this is sports, this is competition. And that's true. Yelling exists. Modern sports psychology, though, has shifted significantly away from that model of coaching. Because, again, there's a difference between high standards and humiliation. And there's a difference between intensity and intimidation. There's a difference between accountability and fear. Like, you can demand excellence from someone without destabilizing them emotionally. Like, those things are not mutually exclusive. And this is actually where I think the fact that it's esports adds another layer of complication to this that I think not enough people talk about. Because esports athletes, they're not the same as traditional athletes, right? In a lot of ways. And one of those ways being that these players, they go pro as teenagers. Some of them are now living away from home for the very first time. Many of them didn't grow up in structured team sports. They grew up grinding solo queue for thousands of hours in their rooms. Like, they were competing. Yeah, they were competing. But it's not necessarily in an emotionally tense, coach-led environment. And the pressure in esports is already pretty extreme with the constant scrims, public criticism, like Reddit threads and Twitter dissecting every mistake that they've made. An expectedly very short career window where 1 or 2 bad plays can mean that you don't got a job. So now, add on top of that, a very authoritarian style, yelling heavy, insult coaching style, and you're stacking stress on top of stress on top of stress. So even if we were arguing that this is normal in traditional sports, first of all, should it be? But also, like, esports is not the same thing. Esports, I think, is a different equation because the players are younger. They're oftentimes more replaceable, and many feel like pushing back or advocating for themselves isn't really an option. And not necessarily because they agree, but because they know that there are 10 other solo queue prodigies waiting for their turn or their spot. And some people may say, like, well, they chose this environment. And that's fair. Like, on paper they did, right? Like, they signed up for it. When you're 18 or 19 in a short career industry where being labeled as difficult, it can end career opportunities for you. How free of a choice does that feel? Power dynamics matter in competitive systems. To be clear, I think high-level competition isn't supposed to be comfortable. Like, growth usually comes with discomfort, and high standards require accountability. But the question isn't whether players should feel pressure, but is what kind of pressure actually builds them up in the long term. So broadly speaking, there are 2 different approaches. We have the authoritarian approach, which is like top-down control, punishment-based motivation, emotional volatility, criticism, those types of things. And then you have the autonomy supportive coaching, which has clear standards and structure, structured feedback, emotional regulation. Both of them can produce short-term results, but only one consistently correlates with long-term well-being and intrinsic motivation. In an esport, which requires cognitive ability, mental stability, it's arguably more important than physical toughness. And I talked about this before, right? Emotional stability is really important in these types of sports because it requires more. You have to be confident in your own decision making. You have to be able to make split decisions in this game. Like, you cannot waver. And if you watch Faker, he is confident in himself and his abilities. I don't think he just goes in. He doesn't. And if he dies, he dies. He's like, whatever. He has the benefit of being older and having more experience. But also, like, I don't know how many people yell at him. But we're not gonna talk about that. We're not gonna talk about that. Anyway. Going back to my outline that I put down so I wouldn't get off track. But so, like, the question again isn't whether yelling exists, or it's whether fear is actually the best long-term motivator. And the one argument, like, this is where I think survivorship bias comes into play, because we see the teams that win under these harsh environments, but we don't see, like, how many players just quietly, like, burnt out or just lose their confidence. I can't help but think about how many people may still be playing if they had more support versus whatever. This whole thing is not really about trying to cancel someone or to pretend that the competitive environment should be soft. Competition is intense. Expectations are high, but esports is actually still pretty young, and we are actively shaping what its culture becomes. If fear-based systems produce results but leave lasting emotional damage along the way, we should at least be willing to question whether this is the best that we could do. Because excellence and emotional stability do not have to be opposites. I'm genuinely curious. Do you think this is just normal competitive intensity, or do you think that esports needs to evolve past this style of coaching? And if they won is the only proof that it works, like, is that enough for you? Yeah, I mean, I really want to hear what you have to say about that. Let me know down in the comments. And if you have another topic or anything you would like me to unpack or discuss, leave that in the comments as well. This is where I should probably mention I stream on Twitch Thursdays, Fridays, Saturdays at 8 p.m. PST. So if you want to talk about it live, head over, hang out. Cool. I just love LOL esports and I want it to be around for as long as possible. And I think the best way to do that is to make sure that we are actually trying to develop talent for the long term. And isn't it crazy how studies show that this type of coaching, like, actually inhibits players from being able to make split-second decisions because they are always second-guessing their own thoughts? That's, I don't know, because, like, think about it like this. If everybody that plays this game in competitive esports has a healthy balance of confidence and the ability to learn and be open-minded and make decisions that are creative and aren't just like what they're told to do all the time. Imagine watching that type of gameplay. And you know what though? cvMax coached Chovy. Oh my gosh! cvMax coached Chovy. So if Chovy's missing factor is the only thing that is missing from Chovy is that clutch play factor. Where does that come from? Does it come from the confidence in yourself to know when to make those types of plays? Wait a second. No. This is obviously no, right? Because Chovy was on Griffin, and that was early in his career. I mean, he also coached Kanavi, and Kanavi is not afraid to do anything. so maybe that's not quite. Maybe that's not quite the argument. But I'm just thinking. Anyway, let me know what you think. I will catch you on the next one. Wow. wah, wah. Wah, 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 wah. Wah, 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 wah. Wah, wah, wah. Wah, 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 wah. Hold up. What in tarnation? Did I get deleted from the system? I'm locked out of my work stuff. Is it because I said the country's run by pedophiles? That's not a secret. Oh, no wonder it feels off. I don't have my emotional support lip gloss. There we go. That feels right. That feels right. I'm not recording this thing again. Oh my gosh. Fuck, where was I?